Speech Night is a one-of-a-kind, biannual campus tradition established in 1971, making it the longest running event of its kind in the country.
All right, so let's get started. You get a means of connection between people or places in particular.
Public speaking is power.
You say things in different ways, it means things, and it means different things to different people.
But for us to be able to alleviate someone's misfortune, we have to first be able to listen to their problem.
Acquiring the skill of speaking before a group of people may be one of the most important.
Oh, there's a word to describe that feeling.
According to the Walt Disney Company, they currently operate from infinity to beyond.
There just comes a time when you have to stand up for your rights, and you have to stand up for what you believe, and you have to stand up for what's right.
And at the time, I just kept thinking, I was like, you got up here and you did what no one else could do. You got up here, you did what so many people were afraid to do. I was like, stop listening because you're already a winner.
First, would you send someone to prison to make yourself feel better? I probably would say no.
It was quite an event. I was not prepared to win, did not expect to win. It was a surprise and a good one. What you need to do is find a way to channel that nervousness into what you're doing, into your speaking, into your presentation. And I tried to remember that, and I guess it worked that night.
I mean, I was one of maybe 7 people who were, honored to give a speech at this amazing event in front of so many people, but it's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of stress.
To bring this all to them, to make them feel like they're really a part of it. What are you going to say to them?
Hello and welcome to the 104th IUPUI Communication Studies Speech Contest. My name is Miranda Prowse and I am the Undergraduate Assistant Director of Administrative Operations at the Speakers Lab, and I'm tonight's Program Director of the event. Before we get started, I'd like to go ahead and take a moment to introduce your MC tonight, Mike Politis. Mr. Mike is a Communication Studies professor here at IUPUI. He teaches classes such as public speaking, interviewing principles and practices, interpersonal communication, persuasion, human and communication, and in his free time, he enjoys woodworking and is also a professional stand-up comedian. So let's give him a round of applause and welcome your MC tonight, Mike Politis.
Yes. Thank you, Miranda.
Hello, R110. So we know there are many other places that you students would rather be tonight, right? At your job, at a barbecue, maybe shopping for that new pool floaty to impress that cute lifeguard. But tonight, you get to see some of the best speakers from 50 different sections of public speaking class. Now, you might find this hard to believe, but the skills that you have learned this semester are going to serve you well beyond your time at IUPUI. You might be called upon at your job to train some new employees. Guess what? That's public speaking, right? You might be called upon to give a toast at a wedding. Guess what? That's public speaking. You might have the opportunity to serve your community in some capacity, representing your town, your city, or even your state. That's public speaking. Finally, when you're a senior citizen and you have grown children, and they come to you one day and they say, "Mom, Dad, my siblings and I have gathered here to talk to you tonight because, well, you're getting older and, well, we think it's time to put you in a nursing home." And you're like, "No, I don't want to go to a nursing home." Friends, that is a persuasive speech. You better not fail, okay? So there's value in what you're learning in this class. Appreciate what you've learned this semester. There's tremendous value in becoming a competent and confident public speaker. In fact, for those of you that are Indianapolis Colts fans, Colts Hall of Fame wide receiver Marvin Harrison said in his Hall of Fame induction speech, "In college, I took a class called Speech 101. My professor told me, 'Marvin, someday you're going to look back on this class and you're going to have to give the biggest speech of your life. And you're going to thank me, so you may as well do it now.'" So students, be sure to thank your professors for what you've learned this semester and enjoy the rest of this evening. Right now, it gives me pleasure to introduce the chair of the Department of Communication Studies, Dr. Christine Karnick.
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Mike. So I want to also take this opportunity to welcome all of you, R110 scholars, friends, parents, colleagues, and guests, to the 104th Semi-Annual Department of Communication Studies Speech Night. In this are our amazing new permanent venue, the Madam Walker Theater. This is truly a momentous occasion. The Department of Communication Studies has held this event continually at the end of each fall and spring semester since 1971. It's the longest continuously running event on campus. Over those years, we have heard wonderful and thoughtful speeches on a wide variety of topics at the forefront of social discourse. Tonight promises to be more of the same, an evening of great oratory in an amazing and historic theater. Ever since I learned that this building was going to align with IUPUI, I've been hoping that Speech Night would find its way here. And now it has. So I want to talk just a little bit about where we are, about this place, this theater, which is part of the Madam C.J. Walker Building and Legacy Center. It was built in 1927, completed some 8 years after Madam Walker's death. Madam Walker was an amazing woman. She was the first female self-made millionaire in America. She achieved this by creating an African-American hair care and beauty products empire. And this theater, so many great talents, especially jazz musicians, such as J.J. Johnson, Wes Montgomery, Freddie Hubbard, appeared here over the years. This theater is considered one of the few remaining African Art Deco buildings in the country. It was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1980. And I am so very happy that this is now our home for this event. So, moving forward, author and aviator Anne Morrow Lindbergh Charles Lindbergh's wife, wrote, "Good communication is as stimulating as black coffee and just as hard to sleep after. I hope and expect that at the end of this competition, you'll be able to experience that sentiment." You're about to hear 7 of the best speeches out of about 1,800 created this spring. And to add to this excitement, you get to participate in the evaluation process. A great deal rides on the decisions you make as you listen to these speakers. The winners of tonight's competition take home not only a beautiful trophy, bragging rights, a nice resume line, but also top winner $2,000 scholarship. So listen carefully, please, and choose wisely. Before we get started, I want to take a minute to thank the people who have made this night possible. First, your instructors. Thank you to all of our wonderful R110 instructors. Your efforts are truly appreciated. Next, thank you to the R110 leadership team who keep R110 running smoothly each year by coordinating roughly 120 sections and 3,500 students, and who have made this evening possible. Most importantly, I want to thank Course Director Stephen Overby. Thank you to our undergraduate events director, Miranda Prowse, who you just saw, our undergraduate event assistants, Jamie West and Laura Lee Kaplinger, our wonderful Speakers Lab mentors, and our event MC, Mr. Mike Politis. Thank you to also, finally, our video production director, John Greenhoe. Could we please give them a round of applause? Thank you. Finally, I want to thank and commend you, scholars, R110 students, for making a valuable investment in your future by completing this course. Engaging in smart, clear, informed oral communication is a gift that you will use, as Mr. Mike just told you, throughout your lives. The skills you've captured will help you professionally and personally, regardless of your major. However, for those of you who may not yet have committed to a major, might I suggest communication studies? Or if you have a major, how about a double major and add communication studies so that you can so clearly communicate what your other major is about? I'm a little biased. A communication studies degree, however, can provide you with the knowledge and set of skills that are critical to organizations and transferable between organizations and even careers. Don't believe me? Look at sought-after majors and skills listed in Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Career Builder. I guarantee you'll be surprised at how often you'll see communication and communication studies. Another possibility you may want to consider is a new Bachelor of Arts in Applied Theater, Film, and Television. If you have an interest in either theater, film and television studies, or media production, this degree will give you a great start in these fields. On the other hand, even if you've already chosen another major, you may want to consider one of our comm minors. We have several, including organizational and corporate communication, media arts and production, health communication, persuasion, and theater. If you look up soft skills that employers are looking for in potential employees on Indeed, here's what you will see at the top of their list: communication skills. And they say, good communication involves listening and observing as well as talking. Candidates must not only be articulate, they must also be able to see beyond the spoken word and notice questionable behaviors and patterns. Employers with expert communication abilities can mitigate a problem. Employees with expert communication skills can mitigate a problem before it becomes a crisis, fostering collaboration solutions when they're needed most. Monster.com echoes this sentiment, adding, if you can clearly express the who, what, when, where, why, and how of a project, you'll be a hot ticket. And their advice on how to gain that skill, they say, take public speaking. Congratulations to you. You've done just that. So, don't throw away what you've learned this semester. Keep that material close by. Remember what a good introduction looks like, what it should accomplish. Remember how an oral argument should be structured. Remember how to transition between points to tie them together, and how to summarize for the listener so that they know what to take away from your words. You've been provided a great framework through which to communicate your ideas. When you leave here and when you leave the university, use it. You'll be glad you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karnick. Next to the stage, I would like to welcome Myra Kivett. For many here in class, the last speech that you will give in the next couple of weeks is a special occasion speech. Well, we are honored to have an exemplar of this with us this evening. Myra Kivett is a communication studies major who was selected as this year's 2023 student commencement speaker after a process, an application process. Myra, in addition to being a student, is currently working on her master's degree in applied communication, and when she's finished, she plans to go to Nashville, Tennessee to work as a singer-songwriter, which she currently does. You can find some of Myra's music at myramusic.co or on Instagram at MYRAKIV. So, presenting her special occasion commencement speech, The Paddle is in Your Hands. Please welcome the class of 2023 graduate, Myra Kivett.
Thank you, Mike. The great philosopher Henry David Thoreau once said, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." What do you see? Do you see your fears as inhibiting or as an opportunity for growth? Do you see your obstacles as barriers or as a challenge? Most importantly, how do you see yourself? Today I see students excited, relieved, and maybe a bit anxious for the next steps to come. But I also see perseverance, grit, and determination. Each individual here today has finished a big race. Congratulations, IUPUI, class of 2023, you did it. I know on behalf of myself and the graduating class, we would like to thank all those here and in spirit who helped us get to this point in our lives. To our friends and families, thank you. To our faculty and staff, thank you. And to those who may have touched our lives in any slight measure, thank you. Without the support of those around us, we may all not be here today. And for that, we say thank you. It is with great humility and honor that I stand here and speak today as your 2023 commencement speaker. While we each may have a different account of what college is, I think it is safe to say that it's a little bit like rowing in the regatta, our annual canoe race on the canal. Sometimes it's smooth, sometimes it's bumpy, sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's intense, sometimes it's crazy, sometimes it's loud, but in the end, you feel proud to have crossed the finish line. No matter where you placed or the challenges you faced, you navigated the waters. Even if you fell behind, or even if you fell in like me, it is what you make it. You see, the way to living to the fullest in our next phase of life, just like rowing in the regatta, starts with our mentality. When I was younger, I used to be shy and afraid. I was insecure, and not to mention, I hated public speaking. Ironic, right? Every time I got up in front of the class, I would shake and ultimately compare myself to everyone else. Looking back, I'm not exactly sure what I was afraid of. I guess falling in the canal for better terms. But I let my insecurities make me someone I was not. And I let who I thought I was determine who I was, up until I got here. Who you see now may not be the same person you were at the start of your race. At least I know I'm not. Coming here, I made a decision. I made a decision to just be who I was, instead of who I let others and myself make me to be. My dream is to be an entertainer. I came to IUPUI in hopes of developing skills to eventually reach this goal. I chose to major in communication studies and involved myself in things such as TEDx, music, and theater, things that I knew would help me grow in these areas. Professors such as Emilio Robles and Daryl Bailey gave me the confidence to pursue these areas, and I quickly learned that the comfort zone is called the comfort zone for a reason. It's comfortable. While your boundary or fear may not be the same as mine, I can assure you that changing our mentality is the key to success in life and in overcoming our own self-imposed barriers. Through perseverance, I found the strength and courage to row my boat, and you can too. Rowing is not always easy, especially when you are rowing against the wind. However, it can be done. Holocaust survivor Eva Kor, whose life is currently on exhibition at the Indiana Historical Society, was a woman who rowed against the wind her whole life. At age 9, she was stripped from her family, never to see them again, and was forced into deadly testing by the infamous Dr. Mengele in the 1940s. She endured years of emotional trauma, physical abuse, and neglect. Yet in her book, Surviving the Angel of Death, she writes, "Never ever give up on yourself or your dreams, for everything good in life is possible." She writes how she chose to forgive all those who inflicted great pain and misery on her so many years prior, writing, "I realized that I had the power even to forgive the angel of death. Anger and hate are seeds that germinate war. Forgiveness is a seed for peace. It will heal your soul and set you free." If Eva can survive Auschwitz, lead a purposeful life, inspire change, and forgive, don't you think we can do the same no matter what currents we're up against? Rowing against the wind is hard, but it is all about your perspective. The wind for us may be a global pandemic, the lines in the campus center food court, or even worse, campus parking. Sometimes you row against the wind, and sometimes it carries you. But it should be nothing but a reminder of what we have done and of what we can do. We graduated. We've already proven to ourselves that we possess the skills necessary to overcome anything. It's a matter of how we choose to use the skills we've developed moving forward that determine our future. Ultimately, the paddle is in your hands. No, seriously, check your grad bags. The paddle is literally in your hands. Life is in your hands. Congratulations, class of 2023. You've made it this far. You're now entering uncharted waters. What will you make of it?
Thank you so much, Myra. All right, so fun fact, there have been previous speech night competitors that have gone on to be the student commencement speaker. So this is a good training ground for that. All right, I'd like to take a few moments now to review the judging and voting process with each of you, so listen carefully. You all should have received a paper tonight that includes the event agenda, the names of the contestants in a section with a QR code for both the program and voting links. If you did not receive this paper, you can view this digitally at thespeakerslab.info. On the back of the event agenda, there's a place for you to score each contestant on a variety of categories, including the proper Monroe format, citations, and speech delivery. We ask that you please score fairly and consistently. Make sure that you're judging based on the same criteria for each contestant. So after all 7 contestants have given their speech, you'll vote by ranking the contestants from first to 7th place. When it's time to vote, you're going to use your phone camera to scan the QR code. In that Google form, you will then rank the contestants, 1 being the best. If you do not remember the order of the speakers, you can review the event agenda and see the contest order there. So once the scores are calculated and the time penalties are put into place, we will announce 3rd place, 2nd place, and finally, our 104th speech competition winner. We ask that you please stay until the end of the competition to see the winner out of respect for the hard work that these students have put forward in their speeches. The voting should not take too long after the last speech. So now, let's meet the 104th speech competition contestants.
Hi, my name is Ananya Pendela, and I'm a freshman studying biomedical informatics and neuroscience. When my instructor told me about Speech Night, I thought it was a great opportunity to explain to people something that was really important to me, so I jumped at the chance to take it. I hope you guys take something away from Speech Night because all of the contestants have something really important to share with you, so take notes or take advice. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hayden Garris. I'm an English major, and I'm a freshman. Just stay calm, and it's only 7 to 8 minutes. Don't be too mean.
Hi, my name is Remington Brown. I'm majoring in fine arts, studying drawing, illustration, and sculpture, and I'm a freshman. I'm feeling mostly excited, but a little bit nervous for the speech finals. My teacher told me I could get money if I made it to the finals. I just want to give a shout out to my teacher, Teresa Tackett. Thank you for teaching me how to give speeches better. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Keily Tiscareno. I'm a nursing student, and it's my freshman year. I'm really excited, and I hope good luck for everybody. I hope everyone does well, and I am really excited.
My name is Alix Gurdian. My major is political science with a minor in history, and I am a freshman. I am honestly very surprised. I think everybody I competed with was a great speaker, and they had some really powerful speeches, and I'm honored to be the one selected to move forward. I hope that you listen to my speech and you do not forget the power that the people possess in this country. And I also wish all of my competitors the best of luck, and I cannot wait to hear their speeches.
Hi guys, my name is Tava Koehl. I'm a freshman here at IUPUI, and I'm currently majoring in management with a co-major in real estate. I was a little bit nervous today, but I'm feeling really, really proud. A lot of the hard work has paid off this semester. Honestly, I was getting a little bit nervous today in some of the classes, so just keeping it chill, keeping it easy, knowing that I prepared as well as I could. My professor talked about it in class a few times, and so basically her and I just kind of worked from there to see if that'd be something that I was interested in, and it definitely was, so. Good luck to all the rest of the contestants. Everybody's gonna do great tonight.
Hi, my name is Grace Bailey. I'm an English literature major, and I'm a freshman at IUPUI. I'm so ecstatic to be here. I worked really hard to get to this point, and I'm just very proud to get to share my speech with all of you tonight. I hope you enjoy all of the speeches tonight.
Okay, so our first speaker of the night is Ananya Pendela. Ananya is a freshman majoring in biomedical informatics and neuroscience and is minoring in biology and chemistry. Her professor is Stephen Overby, and her speech is titled The American Promise. Let us all welcome Ananya Pendela.
America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. How many times have we heard that phrase before? This is the land where we have supersized food and drinks, where we have air conditioning, where we have Marvel Studios, and most importantly, Tom Cruise in Hollywood. And who doesn't love Hollywood? To most people, America is seen as the promise of freedom. But what is freedom? According to Merriam-Webster, freedom is defined as a liberation from restraint or from the power of another. Now, I have a question for you. Using this definition of freedom, do you truly believe that America still holds up to its pedestal as the land of the free? If you've answered yes, then congratulations, you might be part of the privileged few. If you've answered no, then join me in addressing how America is at the cusp of losing all its freedoms for all who live within its boundaries. Today, I will be talking about how America is losing its freedoms, its impact, and how we as a society can prevent America from losing its very identity. Now, the very idea of American freedom is integrated within its very laws, more specifically within its First Amendment. However, recent events suggest that we are losing those rights. Now, who here uses money? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that should be all of us here. Now, I don't know about you, but I love money. I can do whatever I want with it, whenever I want. However, this coming July, that might not be the case anymore, thanks to FedNow. For those of you who don't know what FedNow is an instant digital payment system developed by the Federal Reserve that helps transfer money between different banks automatically. Now, that sounds pretty great, right? Not quite. See, our current monetary transactions are completely anonymous. We can privately spend our money. However, if FedNow becomes a central bank digital currency, then that means, according to AP News, this will allow the government to restrict how much money we spend a day, where we spend that money, where we send that money, and most importantly, when money expires. You heard me right. If FedNow becomes a central bank digital currency, then money will soon expire. Imagine that. But our freedoms with money is not the only freedom that's in danger. Who here has heard of the Restrict Act? For those of you who don't know, the Restrict Act is an act that is defined by the US Senate as an act that restricts the emergency of security threats from information and communications technology from being spread to foreign threats. That sounds pretty great, right? I mean, I wouldn't want my information being spread to foreign threats. However, our current Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, who would be in charge of determining who that foreign threat is, can continuously redefine that foreign threat. So if she said that that foreign threat is you, it's you. If she said it's me, it's me. And if she said that it's another country, I'll give you a hint. It would be that other country. This means that it is entirely under her control to determine if the US is going to be at cyber war with that other country. And if you think this is bad, it gets worse. This act allows the US government to be able to monitor anything that you are doing on any device that is connected to the internet 24/7 without informing you. Moreover, it allows the government to be able to censor absolutely anything that they deem is too inappropriate, including your freedom of speech. The impact of this would include breaking up mass communication methods, as well as allowing the government to be able to monitor you through the cameras that you might have installed within your homes, aka allowing them to spy on you. If FedNow and the Restrict Act weren't enough to convince you of the threats against our First Amendment, then maybe this will. In Florida, the First Amendment is so heavily restricted to the point where it almost no longer exists. Last year, in 2022, the Stop Woke Act was enacted into law. This act, which stands for the wrongs against our kids and employees, not only protected our First Amendment, but it also prevented racial discrimination from occurring within our workplace and within our schools. However, recently, New York Post states that this act was recently repealed due to it being too controversial and too subjective for the government. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are witnessing here today is our freedoms being slowly but surely being taken away from us. However, lucky for us, there are things that we can do as a society to prevent that from happening. Step 1, Contact your representatives. You can do this through email or through phone. If you don't know who your representatives are, then please scan this QR code and you'll be able to find that pretty easily. Now, it's important to contact our representatives because they are the key liaison in which we can tell the government any bills that we support or bills that we oppose. They are crucial within our democracy. Step number 2. Vote. Now, it does not matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican or a Libertarian or, I don't know, a vegetarian or a pescatarian. At the end of the day, what matters is that you make your voice heard. In the previous election cycle, CNBC reports that 54% of Gen Z registered voters voted in the previous election. Now, these specific Gen Z voters completely changed the political outcome of that previous election. Brent Cohen, the executive director of Generation Progress, states that that election was the highest turnout of young voters that we have ever seen as a country. Our generation completely changed American politics during that election. Our generation did that. We did that. And if we were able to do it once, then there is no reason why we wouldn't be able to do that again. Step 3, spread the word. Now, you can do this through Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. At the end of the day, it is important for the people who live within America to know what's going on within their very country. These different steps that if we all take can completely change American politics. All of us will be able to receive the promised freedom that we were told we would get as individuals here in America. But the important thing is that we act now. The Friend Now and Restrict Act might just be the beginning. The previous generation or the previous election cycle was proof enough that our votes and our ability within Congress matters and it makes a difference. I hope I've been able to convince you of the threats and the impact and the solutions that we can do to make sure that the threats against our First Amendment are no longer there. As said in the U.S. Constitution, we, the people, hold the power to make effective change here in America. That, my friends, is the true promise of America. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ananya. Our second speaker tonight is Hayden Garris. He's a freshman majoring in English with minors in history and literature. His professor is Angela Sisson, and his speech is titled Indiana Laws About Sex Education. Let us welcome Hayden Garris.
Sexual assault rates in Indiana are extremely high and need to be reversed in any way possible. According to the Indiana Coalition to End Sexual Assault and Human Trafficking, 1 in 3 Hoosier women have been sexually assaulted. This statistic is true for women at university as well. The ICE-SAHT also states that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before they turn 18 years old. These numbers are disgusting. This is personal to me because several important women in my life that I know of have been sexually assaulted. And after hearing their stories, I did some research on this topic. What I found was pretty shocking and disturbing. Since then, it has become my goal to end sexual assault by any means necessary so that no other women or men have to endure the same situations that they have. Today, I'll be talking to you about the issue of Indiana state law regarding sex education and the need to reform and teach a comprehensive education in schools. Indiana state law says, in essence, that schools are not required to teach sex education, aside from some deadly STDs. What this does is it leaves teenagers unaware of how to properly behave in sexual situations. Prominent education journalist Alexander Appleton, writing for the Indianapolis Business Journal, says, Indiana does not require schools to teach sex education, except for lessons on HIV and AIDS. The only requirement for schools that do teach human sexuality is that they teach abstinence as the single, surefire way to avoid pregnancy and STDs. This is dangerous because there is a massive lack of information that teenagers are not receiving on topics such as STIs, other STDs, sexual assault, consent, proper contraceptive use, contraceptives in general, and more. Plus, not everyone believes in abstinence, and that's just fine too. But without adequate information, teenagers may be rash or unprepared when dealing with sexual situations, especially ones that involve violence, pregnancy, or disease. Now that you're aware of Indiana state laws regarding sex education, or the lack thereof, let's discuss how we can fix it. Comprehensive sex education offers students a well-rounded course in all the facets of healthy relationships, on topics such as healthy relationships themselves, toxic relationships, how to identify them and safely get out of them, consent, gender identities, reproductive health, and more. Sadly, lawmakers and parents alike believe that a comprehensive education encourages teenagers to have sex, but that's not at all the case. In fact, a comprehensive education heavily encourages teenagers to abstain. From an article written by IU Bloomington health experts, despite abstinence being a fundamental component of comprehensive education, the two are often characterized as polar opposites. A proper education would be beneficial to all for a multitude of reasons, and it has the potential to reverse rates of sexual assault and violence. Sex educator Kim Cavell, writing for the Prowse Foundation, says, comprehensive sex education can be directly responsible for reducing instances of sexual violence in both adults and children. There was a study done in the late 2000s where they examined the different types of educations that teenagers were receiving when it came to sex. And what they found was pretty interesting. They compared abstinence-only education, comprehensive education, and a control group which was naturally taught nothing. Between the abstinence-only education and the control group, they found that rates for things such as teen pregnancy, number of sexual partners, disease, were identical. Identical with a group that was taught absolutely nothing. The American Bar Association reports on the comprehensive study, stating 40% of the comprehensive programs examined achieved the three important effects of delaying the initiation of sexual intercourse, reducing the number of sexual partners, and increasing condom or contraceptive use. As seen in this study, teenagers will be better equipped against things such as disease, pregnancy, or proper contraceptive use. Dr. Rebecca Rolston, writing for the Primary Care Review for Harvard Medical School, says, teaching consent is key to preventing sexual violence. This is something that a comprehensive education teaches heavily. By advocating for comprehensive education, it is mine, and hopefully yours too, goal to eradicate the current system and change the laws that require all schools to teach comprehensive education, sex education to begin with, and comprehensive education. With these laws in place, we could see many positive changes. Sexual assault doesn't end with a proper education, but it could have drastic benefits for teenagers, and a comprehensive education will have wonderful overall effects. And the logic behind this is simply being educated. Another quote from the Prowse Foundation says, comprehensive sex education reduces rates of teen pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections, and sexual violence, especially when coupled with affordable and accessible contraception. The Sex Education Collaborative says, increased awareness could reduce stigma and help young people come forward if they've been assaulted. Let's be honest, teenagers are going to have sex, whether that's when they're teenagers, when they're in college, when they're in their 20s, or obviously when they're married. So isn't it better for them to be properly educated from a young age on all that they can and will face in the future? Instead, they could be picking up bits and pieces of bad information as they grow older. I choose the former. To see action regarding Indiana state law, we have to sway the opinions of the state legislature to pass a bill requiring all schools to teach comprehensive sex education. Two proponents of such a bill are Representatives Chris Campbell and Sue Arrington. You can mail them at the State House, the address being 200 West Washington Street. Or you could also vote for like-minded representatives. These two did try to get a bill passed. In fact, they tried to omnibus it, but the support was just not there. The more people we have in the State House who support such reform, the more likely it is we will see change. Another and more direct route to helping with my cause and the cause of ending sexual assault is donating to the Indiana Coalition to End Sexual Assault and Human Trafficking. You can donate on their website, icesaht.org. It's very easy, and you can start with just $1 today. $1, and you're helping make a change. Today, I spoke to you about the ineffective state law and how it affects sexual assault rates and sexual activity in general. I gave you the solution of a comprehensive education, along with another way that you can still join in the fight. Sexual assault must end, and the first big step towards that goal begins with education. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden. So our third speaker tonight is Remington Brown. He's a freshman majoring in drawing, illustration, and sculpture. His professor is Teresa Tackett, and his speech title is Just Go to Bed. Let us all welcome Remington Brown.
Good evening, everyone. I would like you to raise your hand if you got 8 or more hours of sleep last night. I'm seeing less than 10. Awesome. So this is going to be a perfect speech for you guys because today I'm going to be talking to you about sleep deprivation. Now, as college students, we've all faced sleep deprivation at some point or another in our academic careers. But being sleep deprived is one of the absolute worst things you can do both for your academic performance and for your health. As a college student myself, I've definitely experienced the negative effects of sleep deprivation, but after making sleep a high priority in my life, I've experienced a wealth of benefits. My name is Remington Brown, and today I'm going to talk to you about the problem of sleep deprivation, solutions to this problem, and the benefits of healthy sleep. So let's get into the problem, which is, on average, college students just aren't getting enough sleep. According to an article from the Harvard University website titled Why You Should Make a Good Night's Sleep a Priority, over 70% of college students get less than 8 hours of sleep per night, and over 50% of college students get less than 7 hours of sleep per night, with the same article stating that a young adult needs anywhere from at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. But this sleep deprivation is not without its causes. So let's get into the first one, which is we're just plain busy, whether it's class, exams, studying, or hanging out with friends. Sometimes there's just not enough time in the day for everything we want to do and a good night's rest. The second cause is the extreme availability of internet entertainment, which the Sleep Foundation website calls bedtime procrastination. Bedtime procrastination is defined as when we delay going to sleep without a valid reason, knowing that it will harm us. And this destroys our sleep. The final cause for our sleep deprivation is a misuse of caffeine. According to an article from the NIH titled Causes and Consequences of Sleepiness Among College Students, 34% of college students rely on energy drinks on a regular basis, and 67% of users use them as a replacement for sleep. Now, caffeine itself is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you use caffeine as a replacement for sleep, it becomes a problem. Using caffeine as a replacement for sleep is like trying to cover up a cannonball wound with an itty-bitty Band-Aid. It's just not going to cut it. Well, now that we know the causes, let's get into the negative effects. And unfortunately, sleep deprivation causes so many negative effects that if I listed them all, we wouldn't be able to hear any of our other speakers. So I'm going to stick with the top 3 effects that I think are most relevant to college students. And the first one is that sleep deprivation destroys your ability to concentrate. According to the book Why We Sleep, written by Dr. Matthew Walker, a sleep expert and neuroscientist, sleep deprivation makes it almost impossible for you to concentrate. And I'm sure you've all been in class on a day when you just didn't get enough sleep. The professor's saying something, and you're trying to pay attention, but you're just not hearing him. And then when you get home from class, you try to study, you open your book, you read the whole page, and then you realize, I don't remember a single word of what I just read. And according to Dr. Walker, it doesn't take one all-nighter to be sleep deprived. He says that just 10 days of 6 hours of sleep per night was enough sleep deprivation to cause the same level of cognitive impairment as one full all-nighter. The second negative effect of sleep deprivation is impaired memory. According to the Sleep Foundation website, memories are stored during REM sleep, So if you're not getting enough sleep, no matter how much you study, you're not going to be able to remember the information when you need it. Sleep deprivation impairs not only our ability to memorize things, but it also impairs our ability to recall that information when we truly need it. And the last and most severe consequence of sleep deprivation is drowsy driving. According to Dr. Walker's book, Why We Sleep, in the US alone, there are 1.2 million drowsy driving car accidents every year. That's one every 30 seconds, and they result in a death every hour, just in the US. Well, I think I've established that sleep deprivation is pretty terrible, but let's get on to what you can do about it, the solution. And obviously, as you can guess, the solution is get more sleep. But how do we actually do that? Well, in a busy world full of distractions and endless entertainment, you have to make it a priority. You have to take responsibility and cut out the things in your life that are prohibiting you from getting more sleep. This is also a good point in the process to negotiate any changes with somebody that you might be sharing a sleeping room with. But once you've got step 0 down, you're ready for step 1, which is put down your damn phone. Now listen, I know phones are entertaining. I know they're fun. I know you want to text your friends and watch TikTok and watch YouTube, but at the end of the day, sleep is just more important than whatever videos are out there, whatever cute cats are on YouTube. Once you put your phone down, the next thing you can do is make your bedroom a more sleep-friendly environment. And you can do this in a few really simple ways. First is you want to put your phone out of sight, turn off all notifications, and put it out of arm's reach so that you're not distracted by it at all when you're trying to sleep. After that, you're going to want to use quality bedding and wash it frequently to keep it clean. Next, you're going to want to lower the temperature of your room slightly. According to the Sleep Foundation website from an article titled How to Sleep Better, the human body actually lowers its core temperature during the night, so having a cooler room will help you to sleep faster and better. And very last, you're going to want to block out as much light as possible to make your room as dark as possible. In my opinion, the best way to do this is to purchase blackout curtains, which block out all the light from outside. And obviously, you're going to want to turn off any lights. Once you've made your bedroom more sleep-friendly, the last step is to make a sleep schedule and stick to it. But to do that, you have to know how much sleep you actually need per night. And in my opinion, the best way to do this is to gauge based off of how much sleep you get during vacation when there's nothing pressuring you to go to sleep and nothing pressuring you to wake up. When you're on vacation, that's how much sleep you should be getting every night. But once you know how much sleep you need per night, all you have to do is chop that amount of time out of your schedule at night and dedicate that to nothing except for sleep. And just like going to the gym for exercise, consistency is everything. To recap, actually not to recap, the benefits. The benefits of healthy sleep are as follows. Start with the physical benefits. First off, getting enough healthy sleep every night reduces your probability of developing obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, which are all leading killers in the United States. Getting enough healthy sleep every night also makes you more resistant to infection by strengthening your immune system. And finally, getting enough healthy sleep per night greatly decreases your risk of drowsy driving. Next are the mental benefits. Getting enough healthy sleep every night improves your memory and improves your focus and concentration, and it additionally improves your ability to cope with negative stressors and negative emotions throughout the day. And these physical and mental benefits add up to produce academic benefits. According to an article from the NIH titled Causes and Consequences of Sleepiness Among College Students, students who slept an average of 6 or fewer hours per night had an average GPA of 2.74, whereas students who slept an average of 9 or more hours every night had an average GPA of 3.24, which is an average increase of 0.25 on a 4.0 scale. Now, I don't know about you, but I would much rather sleep than study. So if sleeping can up my grades, you know I'm going to do that. To recap, if you want to get more sleep, first, you have to make it a priority. Then, you have to put your phone away. After that, make your bedroom more sleep-friendly. And finally, make a schedule and be consistent. Sleep is one of the most important things for your health, well-being, and academic performance. So when you get home tonight, I want you all to do yourselves a favor. Don't open up your phone. Don't turn on the TV. Don't open your computer. Just relax and go to sleep. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Remington. How we doing? Some good speakers, right? Yes? Good. All right, we're going to keep the show rolling. So speaker number 4 tonight is Keily Tiscareno with Professor Jorge Seifert. She's a freshman majoring in nursing for a speech entitled Thoughts and Prayers. Please join me in welcoming Keily Tiscareno.
I don't want to be an only child. These words were said by Eleanor, whose younger sister Evelyn passed away in the Nashville school shooting that happened recently. Take a moment and let those words sit with you. Gun violence is at an all-time rise in the United States, and this is not something that we can ignore. It affects all of us. It affects myself, you, your friends. Take a look at the person's face next to you in the audience and realize that they could very well be the next victim that we see on the news. Because this problem affects people in society, my friends, people that I care about, I've researched this topic to look into statistics and solutions that we can bring to America to make it a better place to live and safer. Gun reform is needed in the United States because of the increase in gun violence and mass shootings, and because of how it disproportionately affects people of color and women. And also, it is a threat to our right to an education. Now, from the Trauma and Surgery and Acute Care Journal, they found that firearms are now the leading cause of potential life loss. In other words, the leading cause of death. Now, we see these devastating instances happening every day on the news. And along with that, we see your thoughts and prayers. And while they are appreciated, they are not enough, and we need to do more together. You might be wondering what the significance of the number behind me is. Well, from the Educational Fund to End Gun Violence, we found that more than 100 people die every day due to gun violence. That is a scary statistic that we should all be thinking about, because any one of us could very well be a part of this statistic. Not only does it affect our right to life, but it affects our right to an education. Teachers and children are scared to go to school now, and this is affecting their attendance and quality of teaching. From the Pew Research Center, it is found that 57% of students worry about a shooting happening at their school. And on the other hand, 63% of parents are worried about their child's school and a shooting happening at that school. This is over half of America that is worried about a shooting happening at these so-called safe places. These places where your children are meant to receive an education to not only benefit our future, but their future. But how are they supposed to do that if their future gets cut short? Not only does it affect our right to an education, but it is disproportionately affecting women and people of color, these communities that we are supposed to be protecting. Women are often targeted because of their sex. And from the Everytown Research and Policy Report, they actually found that access to a gun makes it 5 times more likely for an abuser to kill his female victim. But it doesn't stop there. Black women are 2 times more likely to be shot and killed by their intimate partner. So not only are women at danger here, but Black communities, as Black Americans are 10 times more likely to be shot and killed than a white American. And this was said by the American Progress Organization. We see how gun violence is affecting our communities around us, and we should be keeping them safe. So how can we increase our livelihood and safety here in the US? Well, there are 3 solutions. We can ban automatic weapons. We have seen the destruction that can be caused in the matter of seconds to minutes with these firearms. And they are not needed here in the US. And banning them would increase our safety. Second is gun license and permits. They need to be required, time limited, and you should be able to take a test to require it. This should be a privilege. We need to know that you have the knowledge to use a gun effectively. And last but not least is background checks. These need to be required even for private buyers such as online sales and gun shows. We need to know exactly whose hands is falling or whose hands are receiving guns, and so we know they're not going into the wrong hands. So what would a country with these policies look like? Well, we'll take Australia for example. In Australia, in this graph here, it compares Australia and the US's mass shooting rates. And then we see in 1996, after this date, Australia's gun shooting seemed to cease. Although it only goes until 2013, they have only had one mass shooting since 1996. While if we look at our data, we're only on the rise. So what happened in 1996 that made their safety go up in the country? Well, the devastating event of the Port Arthur massacre happened where 35 were left dead and 23 wounded, all because of an automatic weapon. After this event occurred, they immediately took charge of this and implemented strict gun laws that involved such things as banning automatic firearms and implementing a buyback program for their citizens. So not only do we see what gun reform can do in other countries, but we can see what it does in our own states. The Stanford Medicine study actually studies this, where they said that states with stricter gun laws actually have less deaths from children and teenagers. And Stephanie Chow found that states with stricter gun laws have a mortality rate of 2.5 per 100,000 versus states with less strict gun laws, where it's almost double at 5 per 100,000. We see how gun reform can and will improve our country and our safety and livelihood in the US. So, what can you do right now as you're sitting in the audience? First is you can go to sandyhookpromise.org and urge Congress to pass the background check expansion bill. This will make sure that it expands it to private buyers so that we know exactly whose hands is receiving guns. Second is you can create a GoFundMe dedicated to the Sandy Hook Promise organization, where they will dedicate these funds into implementing gun violence prevention programs into communities, and even into some communities that may not be able to afford it. Lastly is become an advocate. Use your voice. Using your voice nowadays is such a powerful thing, especially with social media. Protest, send your legislators letters, talk to people and inform people about this issue. Gun violence is not something that we can ignore. This affects all of us, your teachers, your children, your wives. You should be involved. Your thoughts and prayers are not enough and are not enough to change this problem. What we need to do is call for action in the United States. Gun violence in the US is an outlier amongst our other countries. We want to grow up with our kids and have a safe environment for them. And not only that, but a place where they can feel safe and be proud of. That is why gun reform is needed here in the United States. So I ask you, how much do you care about your quality of life here in America? Lastly, I'll leave you all off with a quote said by Jennifer Rosen-Hines, who is a writer and an activist. We can decide we're no longer willing to accept the violence. What we can turn our pain into action. What you decide to do today can save a life. Maybe your child's, maybe your own. Thank you.
Thank you, Keily. Our fifth speaker tonight is Alix Gurdian. He's majoring in political science with a history minor. His professor is Ian Sheeler, and the title of his speech is The New Terms for Congress. So let's welcome Alix Gurdian.
There is no shortage of topics for Americans to disagree upon. We argue about gun control, taxes,
immigration policies, voting rights, and the truly important details, like whether Purdue or IU has a better basketball team. Often, it's far easier for us to focus only on those things that we cannot agree upon, leading us to wonder whether we will ever be able to bridge the gap on the ever-increasing political divide in this nation. There is consistently one topic that Democrats, Republicans, and independent voters are all in favor of, and that is the implementation of congressional term limits. Aside from being a proponent of the idea, I have gathered information that confirms this from sources such as the New York Times, a poll conducted by Gallup, the Heritage Foundation, and others. The American public has lost faith in the ability of the members of Congress to perform their duties with honor and integrity. Bipartisan voters express a high demand for the implementation of term limits. The obstacle in the way has always been the hesitancy for members of Congress to vote themselves out of a job. But today I will discuss what I believe to be the solution. If you require evidence that the American populace has had enough of career politicians who are all perceived as corrupt and only focused on their own self-interests, look no further than the election of former President Donald Trump. Donald Trump gained his widespread popularity by labeling himself an outsider and someone who would drain the swamp of corrupt politicians if he were to be elected. Many Americans felt forgotten about by their elected officials and chose to elect a man who could not have been more unfit to sit at the highest seat of power in our nation. President Trump was sent to Washington to serve as an agent of chaos, gift-wrapped by disheartened voters to shake the so-called political elites to their core. To prevent another Donald Trump from being elected, voters need to have their trust in Congress restored. According to a Gallup poll conducted in 2013, 3/4 of voters are in favor of the implementation of congressional term limits. Further polling from additional sources in the years since has shown little to no change in these numbers. The National Constitution Center believes that with representatives knowing they would have a limited time in office, they would be more focused on enacting legislation than in securing campaign funding in an effort to protect their job for life. Now, what would a Congress that was subject to term limits look like, and how would it be any different? Congress needs to once again be viewed as an accurate representation of its constituents. The original members elected to serve at the federal level often did so begrudgingly, eager to fulfill their duty and then return home to their private lives once their work had been completed. According to research conducted by the Heritage Foundation, the implementation of term limits would reinvigorate what it means to be an American citizen by writing into policy the principle that the people can govern themselves. Many office holders would object, stating that long service was essential to understanding how government works. But that says more about the system itself than it does to discourage the idea of term limits. Congress needs to be provided with fresh outlooks and ideas and outlooks that can only come from members who have lived and worked in the private sector and who run for office looking to improve aspects of the lives of the public that they know so well. If elected officials knew that they had a limited time to enact legislation, they might be more careful to pass only the bills that they truly believed in, themselves having to one day return to civilian life and live under the laws that they've passed. Everyone has heard that power corrupts. So if we limit the amount of time that elected officials hold positions of power, we would theoretically be lowering the risk for potential corruption as well. The Brookings Institution argues that potential corruption and a reliance on interest groups would not actually be lessened by term limits, but enhanced due to a constant influx of unexperienced legislators looking for a light to guide them. The counterargument to that fact is that lobbyists and advocacy groups would not have time to invest in politicians or be able to curry favor with their campaigns. This would assumedly lower their levels of influence over those elected to represent the people, not the interests. Some of you may be asking why you should care about this, or how it would even affect you at all. It's not uncommon to hear that our representatives often have outdated or misguided viewpoints, or that they are far too detached from the realities of life as an ordinary citizen to make effective decisions on our behalf. The problem with electing new officials who possess fresh ideas is that it is hard to unseat a representative who has held their position for years or decades. Elections almost always weigh heavily in favor of the incumbent. We cannot reinvigorate our electorate without getting new members into office. But if they cannot win elections, nothing is likely to change. But term limits could serve as a clean slate protocol for our entire governing bodies. It's easy for politicians on the campaign trail to say that they are in favor of term limits, knowing that any legislation they might put forward would likely never come to pass. So how might we actually get to see this come to fruition? If the case for term limits is brought to the floor of the House or Senate, I propose an addendum be added that protects currently elected officials from having to vacate their seats under a grandfather clause. No one, let alone a politician, would willingly sign a death warrant on their own career. But if they know that their own seat is protected, they may be more willing to appease their voters at no harm to themselves or their career. If they are beloved by their constituents, they can continue to run for re-election and maintain their office. Otherwise, they will be voted out just like anyone else. These new term limits would allow House members to serve 6 consecutive terms, totaling 12 years, and senators 2 consecutive terms, also totaling 12 years. There would be nothing preventing upward mobility for these members if their voters chose to elect them to offices of higher stature. The New York Times covered a new term limits proposal set to hit the House floor, confident that nothing will come of it, much like the 2 proposals that were voted against in the 104th Congress in the late 90s. These bills are easy for representatives to put forward, knowing they will likely be dead in the water, but it gives the proposer the ability to return home to their voters and say that they tried. But with the grandfather clause in place, I truly believe that it is our best chance for term limits to actually come to pass. Career politicians of today can remain, but those newly elected would be subject to the new terms. As I previously mentioned, there is currently proposed legislation being worked on in both chambers of Congress. Neither of these acts have the only way to get this through with the inclusion of the grandfather clause, assuring that so long as hopeful congressional life members are threatened, nothing will happen. If we let our elected officials know that the American public is serious about the demand for term limits and that those in office currently will be protected, I believe we could change the face of the American political system as a whole. The citizens of this nation have little to no faith in the system and in the career politicians who serve as cogs in the machine. Even a nation as politically divided as ours currently is can find common footing in the want or need for term limits. The enactment of term limits, which would affect only those members yet to be elected, is not the perfect fix to our issues today, but it offers hope for the future where currently there is none. I believe that with this proposal, term limits can become as close to reality as possible. So let us stand united as a nation and correct the path forward for the entire federal government. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So our 6th speaker tonight of the evening is Tava Koehl with Professor Angela Sisson. Tava is a freshman double majoring in management and real estate. The title of the speech is Change the Way We Use Our Guns. Please join me in welcoming Tava Koehl.
If I were to ask you where the nearest fire exit was, could you tell me? Could you safely exit this building right now? Go on ahead, look around the room, find the nearest fire exit. Where's that? By the time that you would even recognize that an active shooter's walked in those doors behind you and comprehend that what you just heard were gunshots, 3 people would already be dead. And your life would still be flashing before your eyes with no way out. While this might sound like a hypothetical situation, this is exactly what just happened at the Greenwood Park Mall shooting 4 short months ago. A 19-minute drive from where we're at tonight. But you probably didn't hear about that. So when are we going to start talking about this? Mass shootings impact more than just malls and theaters. They impact even the most unsuspecting of places, classrooms. For those of you old enough to have lived through it, and to each student who are reminded every school year, let us all commemorate the pivotal bullet that ricocheted American history. The Columbine High School mass shooting, According to Everytown for Gun Safety, a website with the same ideas as myself, 95% of American schools mandate active shooter and lockdown drills. However, there have been 374 school shootings since Columbine in 1999. And over 340,000 students have had to endure the trauma of this happening within their own school. We always want to send our thoughts and our condolences to these families, but we do not talk about it. We do not talk about it. So with this in mind, I will now read statistics from The Insider, showing just how many people are affected by gun violence annually. In the year 2022 alone, there were 674 mass shootings spread across the nation. our nation, the place we call home. This year, we've already had over another 100. When I was 10, I found myself on the floor of a dark and silent classroom preparing for an intruder to come in and shoot myself or a classmate. I did this until I turned 18, and I viewed it as the standard of what's normal when I go to school. Not education, not making friends at recess, but preparing for the possibility of losing my life. But thoughts and prayers do not bring these dead children back to life. Mass shootings affect all of us within the United States, and while it is a constant problem, it is one that we can fix together and that we need to fix now. So let me begin by bringing this closer to home for you. Here in Indiana, almost 1,000 people die annually due to gun violence, causing us to hold the 16th highest rate for annual firearm homicides. Another fact from Everytown for gun safety. Currently, the Bill of Rights also tells Indiana citizens that you do not need to acquire a license to carry a gun, whether this be openly carried or concealed. This made me wonder, what else is legal when it comes to firearm possession? While you must be 18 to purchase a firearm, a parent or guardian can allow you to possess theirs despite age restrictions. Along with this, I looked into how many people are actually affected by this. Michigan State University published an article sharing that about half school shooters are done by current or past students, to which 74% of them obtained that gun from their guardian. In fact, just at the beginning of this school year, a 6-year-old shot his teacher with his mother's gun. And while it is an unlikely situation, it still sheds light on the fact that we need to keep any firearms away from any minors. Along with this, we need to keep assault weapons away from anyone. After being named the deadliest weapon according to the Rolling Stones magazine and holding over 85% of annual firearm homicides and mass shootings, it is important for us to prohibit them from becoming common guns that just anyone can own. Mass shootings don't happen very often here in Indiana. However, the Greenwood Park Mall perpetrator used 2 automatic assault rifles to take 3 people's lives. And while it couldn't be categorized as racially, religiously, or sexually motivated, it is still important for us to notice that creating open fire within a shopping mall, that should be our call to action to stop the violence before we do experience a travesty like this. So here in Indiana, the biggest problem might not be that we do own guns, but the steps that Indiana legislation takes in allowing us to purchase one is. Therefore, Indiana must amend all applications for potential gun owners. Indiana must amend applications for all potential gun owners and focus on the extent of background checks. Currently, a background check is only one singular step. It is a character form listed as Form 4473 that checks your criminal history and has the exact same personal attributes that your driver's license has. It is then only revised by the Federal Bureau of Investigation following the submission by the supplier. This is why I believe that we need to implement a new 3-step process of applications. This process would start with an interest interview that would be given by the supplier. It would have a set list of inquiries of why a person wants to buy a firearm. Furthermore, a psychiatric evaluation should be completed. This could be done by a primary care doctor, therapist, or any other medical professional who's trained within the requirements of the assessment. In the same sense that an athlete needs to complete a physical before competing, you would need to entail your own competency to own a gun. Along with this, you'll bring in Form 4473 still. In taking each of these 3 steps, gun violence would decrease, not only due to it being harder to obtain a firearm, but also due to the examination of each aspect of the purchaser. My goal today is to protect Indiana citizens from the cruelty firearms can cause if in the hands of someone who is ill-equipped when possessing them. In fact, if a firearm is in the hands of a responsible owner, it can be the exact thing that can de-escalate one of these situations. But if we continue how we are now with a lack of regulation, who's to say that we don't just let the violence consume us and spiral into a fear-ridden community who is forced to add bulletproof vests or backpacks to your shopping list when you go back to school shopping? While I know this sounds ridiculous or extreme, you can find children's backpacks equipped with ballistic materials on Amazon. We as a community need to feel our anger and ground our emotions rather than seeing red and causing bloodshed through a college campus. When we are finally able to accomplish peace in our emotions, that's when we'll see a generation of children who aren't scared to go to school, a generation of people who meet strangers in the mall. All in all, we will have friendlier encounters and we will begin to value other human lives. So I say now is the time to talk about it. I ask that you go home and you contact Eric Holcomb. Tell him to progress our laws to protect our citizens. You can contact him on the website in.gov under the prompt Ask Eric. Remember, use your First Amendment right to better protect your second. With each of these steps taken, we would finally see change. Change can occur today with these steps. To recap on my process, we will use 2 new steps, a psychiatric evaluation and an interest interview, and still filling out Form 4473. Let us not find ourselves asking why the next time we hear about 3 people shot dead in a mall, but rather take the steps of protecting each of those innocent lives. Let our actions protect you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tava. Our last speaker this evening is Grace Bailey. She's a freshman majoring in English literature and minoring in bookbinding. Her professor is Maggie Unruh, and the title of her speech is Revenge Porn and Shame. Please join me in welcoming Grace Bailey.
And trust, above all else, is built. So when she was asked to share nude photos, given an ultimatum at the cost of preciously coveted friendship, she did. And when the worst happened, she wasn't really shocked. Non-consensual pornography is defined by Zach Franklin in his article, Justice for Revenge Porn Victims, as the sharing or uploading of nude images of a person without their consent. Revenge porn itself is when those pictures are distributed by a former partner. It can be for any number of reasons, but is often a punishment after a relationship has ended. What would you imagine is the most devastating aspect of that? The act itself? The betrayal? For many victims, it's what comes after. It's the shame. And that is what we need to change. Today, I will describe the intensity of shame associated with revenge porn, outline a solution of personal accountability, and illustrate the dangers of complacency. Shame is explained by Luna Dolezal in the paper Horizons of Chronic Shame as the failing of an individual to live up to a set norm or standard as determined by society. That feeling is internalized by the individual and can grow into a deeply invasive and enduring struggle. This is often the case for victims of revenge porn. There is a perceived personal failing associated with the act. The article, Too Ashamed to Report, Deconstructing the Shame of Sexual Victimization, came to the crushing conclusion that most women who experience sexual victimization believe it to be their fault. That feeling is internalized and grows, a seed of shame sprouting and infecting in their lives. Revenge porn is an insidious violation of one's autonomy, of their very personhood, and the perpetrators of those acts are truly wicked. But if we really want to combat the shame associated with revenge porn, we can't look at the act alone. We must turn some of our righteous indignation inward. We have cultivated a culture of intense shaming. We do it to our neighbors, to the latest tabloid celebrity, to our sisters and our daughters. We like to imagine it holds each other accountable. When somebody feels ashamed, it is not entirely internal. The audacious voice of the other feeds the flame. What was she wearing? Did she say no? How could she let that happen? She gave them the pictures. Those aren't uncommon sentiments. They're very pervasive, in fact, and most everyone in this room has had them before. I know I have. I've read an article or listened to a story, and I didn't empathize, I condemned. I've even had these thoughts about myself. We can't erase those ideas from existence, nor can we induce a miracle and suddenly live in a kinder utopia. We can, however, start to hold ourselves accountable. We can learn to recognize the times when we contribute to a culture of shaming victims and instead restructure our thoughts and impulses. How could she let that happen? How could someone do that to her? The article, Rape Culture, Victim Blaming, and the Facts from Southern Connecticut State University puts it this way. When we blame and shame the victim, we reinforce the choices of the abuser. If we want to take away the abuser's power and uplift the victims, then we must actively engage with the solution and hold ourselves accountable for perpetuating these cultures of shame. I ask that each of you question your assumptions, your snap judgments. I beg, because that girl I told you about, she was 13. She was 13 and changed forever, not just by the act, but by the voice inside and the voice of the other, telling her it was her fault, demanding that she feel shame. This isn't sustainable. We must learn to change, and we cannot continue to turn a blind eye. Samantha Bates's article, Revenge Porn and Mental Health, interviews 18 women on the devastating experience and found through qualitative analysis that the victims I am referring to experience trust issues, anxiety, depression. They suffer from PTSD, suicidal thoughts, and more. And though we may be passive, we are not innocent. If we do not, as a culture, begin to shift, we are saying it is okay. We endorse not just revenge porn, but all kinds of violence against women, and violence it is. We abandon victims. We abandon that girl, and we comfort ourselves with platitudes and niceties. There was nothing I could have done. There is something you can do. And I am sick of hearing otherwise. All I ask of you today is this. I ask that you participate in a thought experiment with me. Close your eyes, and if you can, think of your greatest shame. Let yourself feel it. Now imagine that being broadcast to the entire world. Your friends, family, teachers, coworkers, complete strangers. Let it spread out in your mind. And for just a moment, live in that. That girl has to live with that every day of her life. The next time you move to shame someone, remember that feeling. The next time, how could she let that happen, crosses your mind, I implore you to try and empathize before you condemn. And maybe, just maybe, we can start to build a kinder world. We can build one where that girl can breathe a little more easily. Thank you.
What a wonderful group of speakers we had here tonight. Let's give them all a round of applause, please. Before we get to voting, we want to take a second to recognize our amazing faculty and students and staff that have worked so hard to make this event what it is today. So let's give them a round of applause, please. And a big thank you to our ASL interpreters as well. Thank you for being here tonight. Pulling off an event like this is not an easy task, and so we couldn't do it without each and every one of those amazing individuals working every single day. So thank you once again to all of those people. As we begin the voting portion of our speech contest tonight, we remind you to rank all the contestants 1 through 7 and use the QR code that is in your event agenda sheet and on the screen. So while the votes continue to come in, we're tallying them up as they come in. We also want to encourage you to please, out of respect for the speakers that have worked hard to be here tonight, please stay seated until the end of the show and the awards are announced. The voting should only take just a little bit of time. And so again, out of respect for those speakers, please remain until the awards are presented. Okay. Thank you all once again for joining us this evening. So tonight, our chair of our Communication Studies Department, Dr. Christine Karnick, and tonight's program coordinator and director, Miranda Prowse, will present the awards. And by the way, how about a hand for those two? All right, for this evening. So thank you so much. Miranda's back here coaching me because I was nervous, so thank you. All right. In third place tonight, third place finalist is Alix Gurdian. Yes, Ian, you get one too. All right. Our second place tonight goes to Ananya Pendela. And our 104th IUPUI Communication Studies Speech Competition winner of Speech Night is Tava Koehl. Congratulations, Tava. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to all of the contestants. Thank you all for supporting our contestants in tonight's event. And thank you to everyone involved in making this event happen again tonight. Thank you. Please drive safely this evening. Good luck the rest of the semester.